What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about No Rest for the Wicked, a game that I'm very happy that I was able to actually give a shot. And look, I have not played this game for long at all, and in fact, I've only crossed the 2-hour mark. But I wanted to throw a video together to, as the title suggests, very early impressions, right, of this game. Is this game even worth checking out? Who is this game for? And I will say this, the game is for a specific audience, and I was caught off guard. I kind of knew what this game was going in. I thought it looked really interesting. I'm a fan of the Ori games. Now, I knew it wasn't going to be like Ori, okay? But I'm a fan of the studio, so I've been paying a little bit of attention. And they did give me a code, so I want to thank them. But you can get this through early access. I think it's on sale right now, right, for $32. But I think normally it's $40. And I'm not actually, and I want to say this because I genuinely mean it, I actually talk about it all the time, I'm not even a fan of early access. For whatever reason, I'm trying to get into a couple early access games right now, but generally, I'm not a fan of it. I prefer my games like done when I get the game or if I purchase the game. So I would get why that would maybe be just a thing that immediately turns you off of this game, but when you got this and you have Hades 2 doing its own thing and 33 Immortals, like I actually want to get into a lot of these. But No Rest for the Wicked is actually very good. And let's just start there. This is a really good game that took me quite a while. Now, look, again, I've only played it for 2 hours. I'm going to play more of it today, by the way. But it took, I would say, easily over an hour to really start to appreciate and to even just figure out what this game is. Because, again, you can watch some stuff. And I watched previews. I read previews, right? This is a tough game. And it also functions kind of differently than other games like in the genre. So, like, calling it a Soulsborne game is probably fair. The game is challenging. The game feels to me like that's the biggest inspiration for it, right? I mean, very early on in the game, you know, you're on the island and there'll be like a camp. And there's very difficult enemies, and you'll die and you'll respawn basically at these checkpoint-like places that you can find around the map. Your items will degrade. There's crafting in this game. Your items will degrade, and so you're eventually going to have to figure out, you know, what you want to do with them. There's different builds. You can do a light class. You can do kind of like a normal. In fact, the builds are kind of based off of the weight in this game, right? So by the end of my play session, the first play session I had a very long sword. It was very heavy. It was a two-handed weapon. And your playstyle needs to match that. It's heavy, it's slow. But early on in the game, I was doing kind of like these dual-wielding daggers, right? You're very fast, you're very nimble, and you play differently based off that. So I didn't fully know what I was getting into because the game is very challenging. It's got a whole kind of block and parry system, although depending on the weapons you're using, you might not be able to block. And the way I was describing it actually to a friend of mine while I was talking to him while playing it, it's heavy. This is a heavy, even if you're lighter, right? I mentioned, if you have less weight on you, you can actually be lighter overall. But it feels heavier than what you might imagine it. Like if you're even just watching it, say, right, the footage I'm providing right now, you might not get the sense of how heavy the game is, but just the way the enemies move, and there's kind of like a slight delay, and when you think they're going to strike, you might want to hold off like just a quarter of a second more before you parry. And depending on the weapon, I was actually pretty good at parrying, by the way, but sometimes I was god-awful, especially as the game went. But the game overall, I would say, is fun. It's got that sense of exploration that I think some of the Soulsborne, like even if you think Elden Ring, one of the things that it does so well is just opening up the world for you to explore. And for me, in order to get into these games, I feel like you almost have to hold my hand at least just a little bit to like kind of explain the systems. This game really kind of doesn't. It throws you on the island and it says go, right? You loot whatever you can possibly find. You're going to find people. You're going to find side things. You're going to find main things. And you just kind of go. I actually really like, I don't know if you want to call it parkouring, but the way your character moves and is able to like walk on like a narrow, kind of straight, right? Like if there's a wooden board and they'll walk on it. It's really cool, the exploration in this game. And they even tell you early on, the map will actually degrade. So even if you explore areas over time, and I actually tested this towards the end of the 2 hours, it takes a while. But the map will actually shrink back. So it'll grow as you explore, say, like the fog, right? And the missing parts of the map will fill in. But if you don't go back there for an extended period of time, the map will start to shrink on itself and you'll lose that on the map. So I think that's a super cool thing to me. Like, it just makes the game a little bit different. But, I mentioned early on, I kind of want to nail this point too. I mentioned early access. And again, I got to be real. Like, I'm not into it. And you can go back. You could say, well, Alex, you're talking about a game that's early access right now. Right. But look at my other 6,000 videos and you tell me what early access games I've been a part of. Not many. The game feels like full. Again, now I've only played 2 hours, but I've seen people play it longer, than I have. The game feels meaty, so I really don't think you're getting into a game that's in like an absolute pathetic state. There's absolutely nothing here, and you're going to have to wait weeks, if not months, if not longer, for the game to actually fill itself out. It feels like there's an actual game here, and that's why I even gave it, and I'm genuinely serious about this, it's why I even gave it the time of day. If it really felt like it wasn't even a game yet, I wouldn't have even tried to get a code. I wouldn't have even paid any attention to it. So I really want to echo that for those that maybe would be worried. I've seen online a lot of things about the performance. Now, I had some frame rate issues. There definitely were some frame rate issues. None enough to ruin the experience, ever. And I don't want to jinx myself because I do want to, play more of it, and it might get worse as time goes on. But the first 2 hours, especially actually in fighting, I didn't notice anything bad, but there were a few times, maybe like moving from left to right or whatever, where, yeah, the frame rate did dip. And I have I have like a 3080, which isn't the strongest, especially nowadays. It was stronger, a few years ago. I think I'm playing this on like quality mode, so I'm not pushing it to the extreme. I've seen people try to push it to the extreme, and I think this is actually a pretty nice looking game. I really like the art style. The beginning starts on a boat, and the waves in the background just look freaking, you know how I am with water. The waves look incredible. It's got a very particular kind of art style to it, and I don't know if I'm a big fan of like in the beginning there's a character creator. I'm not a real big fan of like how your character looks like that. I don't know. Like I'm not a huge fan of that one. But as you go in and the camera's, pulled back, right, more like top down, and you're facing enemies and you're just looking at like the environment and because, as you go through this island, you're going to reach different kind of points where things are going to look a little bit different. I think that the beauty of the exploration, the beauty of kind of like the surrounding lands actually looks really, really good in this game, but it's a different kind of visual. Like, when you first start out this game, I got to be real, like, not only was it kind of a shock of like, okay, well, what is this game? How exactly is it going to operate? Like, I didn't know much about the crafting stuff. The crafting, the degrading, I'm normally not in fact, I would say just in general, I'm not really a fan of degrading weapons. I know it adds like an extra layer to games. I totally get that. Again, like I'm more of a casual in that sense where I would just prefer the weapon to stay, but I get it. But that was something that, look, if I'm going to go through this game, I'm going to have to get used to. Your armor is going to get weaker if you take hits. If you die, your armor is going to take a hit. So you just got to be prepared, and I have to be prepared. But I really felt, and I think the best way of putting this game into words is, like, as I kept playing it, it was a shock to like my system of what type of game this was, and trying to appreciate the looks and the sound. And the sound is really good in this game as well, and the combat and all this stuff, and just how the game operates. But once you start to get more comfortable, and as I was really starting to explore the map and taking detours and going ways that you don't need to go, but I was going anywhere to get chests and to get loot and all this stuff, I was really enjoying myself. So far, so good. So far, it feels like a game. It feels like, maybe not the most well-polished game of all time, but it actually feels pretty darn good. And I feel like there's absolutely value and quality here. Now, again, though, it really depends on the type of gamer that you are, because I can see many people just saying absolutely not, right? And even if you pick up the game and you say, man, I didn't expect it to function this way. Again, it feels a little heavier than you think a game like this would normally feel. And it's hard to put that into words. Like, you almost have to play it, but then, if you don't like it, then you just wasted your money. So it's a tough one. It absolutely is. But I don't know, in the right circumstances, and if you liked the things I was saying about this game, right, I think it's up your alley. If you notice something about what I've been showing you or what I've been talking about, I would probably recommend holding off, right? Because I do think this is a specific game, and I think it's very possible that you get it and you are blown away by it and you really appreciate / like it. or you buy it wanting to give it a chance and it just does not click with you. This is one of those type of games. And then it's also an early access, which I know can be, a thing for people. So let me know what you think in the comments. I'm willing to do more videos on this game if you guys want to see it. Maybe like a later on, right? 10, 15, 20 hours into this game. How is it then? Maybe I could do that kind of video, say next week or something. Okay, let me know. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.